Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna here. Basically, I discussing on the topic that is city creation. City creation, basically, I discussing on the topic that is India account. India account, basically, we are discussing on the topic that is SB account, Amazon account, and after 2 days, basically, in India, basically, big earthquake is going to happen. So that topic actually it's one way. So in this, basically, we have discussed lots of things. In this, basically, we have discussed that basically the lava data basically is creating, and that is basically creation basically on progress basically it is only. And in this basically we saw that also the lava data basically which is creating, which is getting created, that is connected with the current season also basically. That is connected with one person basically asked the question. Sunil, basically if universe group basically want to track something basically, for example, the lava data basically which is getting processed, that is 100 crore child basically which is getting processed, that nobody in this earth planet basically might be knowing where it is getting processed, but few people basically might be knowing. But how they verify basically that anybody is connected with this? So they basically sometimes basically they give suddenly climate change effect in that area only basically, and the connected area means, for example, 100 crore child is going to process, going to get birth. In that basically 5 crore child basically are from UAE. So suddenly basically the UAE gets the climate effect. So sometime basically the climate change group basically not able to track the thing basically. After that effect also, that is the person basically got into the Dubai, the activation basically happens of the cloud blasting. After that also basically the rain basically is not falling, or basically the ice is not falling. That time basically after certain time basically gets falls. That means it's a climate change, and that is the satellite group basically which is. So satellite groups keeps on checking basically the 100 crore of child basically which is going to happen. Anybody is tracking that basically, because you can just imagine basically up to what level sensitive creation of child is basically. And if anybody basically sudden, and in this basically anybody finish the particular person's generation, then basically you can just imagine up to what level serious issue basically this has become. Just taking as an example, really, I here basically I had taken the example of what my generation ended in Mumbai city, but really basically my generation was not ended. So so you can just imagine basically how dangerous thing basically has connected. In this basically, if God family is also basically doing the generation and they are also going to suffer basically in future. Because when the 100 crore child is going to get activation, that time basically that God family will getting effect basically. When that child story is going to generate into the environment. So one person told that that is a God family basically, they can save themselves basically. That is correct basically. But other than the Earth planet groups are also there, na, who actually created the Earth planet. They are going to leave that God family. No, they are not going to leave. So that is also one of the stuff basically. So here the thing is basically what? The universe group basically keeps on checking. One person basically asks the question. You are basically into software industry basically and you are not getting the job. Still basically today also basically you have not got the job, and still basically you are sitting at home and you are recording this video basically. Why? Because you don't have job, you don't have money basically. Then what you are going to do basically? And without money, you can't survive also basically. That is the plan of the certain level of groups basically. Somebody has planned that basically. So one person basically asked the question basically. Satellite group is still basically you are not getting the job. Then Sunil Larna told that yes, basically, still basically I'm not getting the job. That means here its problem is in Vadodara city basically. The problem is in Vadodara city. So one of the satellite person told that who is actually Vadodara city. That means that is BJP group basically who is ruling the Vadodara. That is Gujarat chief minister basically. He is ruling the Gujarat basically. That means from there basically the problem is. Then basically Sunil, one of the person told, have you mailed any of the person, basically political person? Yes, basically I have mailed the political person also, but they are basically telling that basically we that's not our duty basically. Then what is your duty basically? That is also question. Basically. If one person basically can't get one job basically, then basically how you are running the city basically? That is also one question basically. Then how you are running the city basically? How you are running the city? That means you are finishing the city basically. So BJP is finishing Vadodara city. One person satellite basically told that also. One person from satellite told this also that BJP is finishing city. If they basically can't give one job basically to Sunil Nair, that means they are finishing the city basically. That means they are finishing the Gayakwadi group. Cities basically of Gayakwad city basically. So they are finishing Gayakwad groups. So that is also different thing basically. That is actually personal basically. So I thought basically in this basically I should add personal also. Why? Because satellite group basically suddenly changes the climate. That Dubai, few people says that the Dubai basically went suddenly basically the rain basically got fall. One of the reason was that person basically came late. But that was why he came late basically. If you will check a little bit more detail, then you might connect to this. That is 100 crore child example basically, where the lava data is getting processed. And where the lava data is getting processed, that basically are connected with the satellite group directly. In this basically not a single nuclear power company basically might be knowing that where exactly the lava data is getting processed of that 100 crore child. So you will not able to believe that basically how dangerous sensitive issue is of the next generation. And in that basically somebody ended Sunil Nair next generation. In this basically just taking as an example basically here I have taken the example of myself basically. That's why basically nobody else I can't take example of anybody else. So my generation has ended by Mumbai. That example I have taken here. So here basically one of the person told that project done, everything basically done. The nuclear power company basically dumped the chemical data of this 10 crore project. Chemical data generated, lava data basically getting generated, and that also basically dumped into the land. In that land area basically the lava process basically starts. So here one person basically asks the question, how they basically maps 1% child from that land basically, how it is possible? Yeah, basically that is not basically. Do you think basically it's not a magical basically thing? You don't think basically it's a magical thing basically. From that lava land basically you are processing one child group basically, one child group, and like this 100 crore child group basically you are producing from that land only. So that is not a magic basically. It's a very high tech magical basically you can say. Even this basically in this basically this video basically one of the person told that who basically can understand this video basically. Yeah? So, because how basically they are doing the process, because entire thing basically is done by this software group basically. Microsoft is going to produce 1 crore child. So that Microsoft has what done basically into that software basically that in automatically basically the land basically that is the lava land is going to produce 1 crore child basically 1 crore child group. And in that basically assume that Sunil R Nair generation basically ended by Mumbai city, and in that basically he removed Sunil R Nair data which was actually dumped, and then basically he removed it, and he basically told that basically Sunil R Nair ki nasbandi ho gayi. Like this basically he has done, and he dumped that data into the lava data. So when Sunil R Nair data will come basically that time, because whatever data you entered into the system, that never gets erased. That basically gets stored somewhere basically. If in For example, there is one computer company name basically called Compaq or Dell or basically HP. They basically have one server. So they basically have, for example, they have around 10 crore computers each. So 10 crore computer data basically are stored in one server of the company. Basically. And that servers are connected with set of satellite groups. So data basically never gets erased. So that data basically which was deleted by Microsoft, that is basically inside the computer. That is inside the company computer. Basically. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the stuff basically are connected. So one person told that, "Matlab, really this is correct or just basically you are telling the story basically, user story basically. That is also, but one of the person told that how you are going to check this. Is there any machine basically, or basically is there any technique, or basically is there any softwares basically, is there any zoology department basically have any software, or basically is there any zoology scientist basically, or zoology professors, or basically the zoology groups basically that are basically the BSc zoology groups, MSc zoology groups, and who are basically connected with the land area, and then lots of software company basically are doing the R&D with the zoology departments basically. Because you in this basically you should know the zoology department and the software also basically. So that group only basically can handle this stuff. So that group basically can track this basically where the child process is basically ongoing and how basically they are doing the child process. In the mother's stomach basically the process happen that you can see through the through the machine basically. But that also basically it's a not a legal basically. But if in emergency case anybody want to see, but you can give the application and you can see basically. But here actually it's not like that. But satellite group basically can see that how basically the creation basically is happened. So you can just imagine basically how stuff basically it is. This is actually the magic basically. This is really the magical thing basically which you can say. It's not basically somebody told that basically ये तो क्या है मतलब ये मतलब really basically this is like that or basically you are just telling only like this. You are just telling like that only basically. That is also question basically. That is also question. That really basically this thing basically which you have told that is correct or basically you are just telling like that only. That's actually the question basically. How basically you can diagnose or basically how you can check that data which is getting processed that is 100 crore child. In that basically the Microsoft basically is also having 1 crore child. And Microsoft basically you know basically Microsoft group basically. Up to what level they are good into a technological side. So they basically can do anything basically to take that data status basically because it's a investment basically. It's a 1 crore investment basically, and they have invested just one 10 crore project basically. So it's a huge investment basically. It's not like that basically they are done that's they have done the future creation basically. They have done the future creation basically. And this is a huge investment basically of the Microsoft. So you can just imagine basically. So you can just imagine basically. Just a minute. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the stuff basically are connected. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the stuff basically are connected. So one person told that the process basically which is happening basically, that is the child process which is going to happen, and in this Sunilar Nair basically generation was ended, and Sunilar Nair next generation is not going to happen. Like that basically anything is going to affect basically because that is getting processed in the child, that is processing into the human souls basically. Sorry, into the land basically. So that is not a magic basically. That basically one of the person told that how that might be possible, yeah, basically. What actually they are doing there basically. And in that basically, if anybody's generation ends basically, somebody ended in that generation, that is a how big issue basically it is. It's a huge big issue basically. But in this basically, here the main issue is if the person basically is going to have second marriage and the first marriage group basically ended his generation. So that issue basically is how much big issue that is basically. That is going to affect to entire nationality or basically it is going to affect to entire world or basically the entire universe is going to come into this. That basically you have to check basically because I assume that basically that person basically suddenly died. Second person, that person basically who got the Nazruddin. Assume basically I suddenly died. That person basically is me. Assume that basically. So anything is going to affect basically in world. Sorry, in universe basically. World is going to affect, but in universe basically anything is going to affect. That basically you need to check because in this Sunil Nair generation has ended. So that check it basically fast. Otherwise, basically it might possible that entire universe will come into the picture due to Earth planet. Sorry, due to but Indian nationality basically is everywhere basically, so it's Earth planet. So this is the one user story basically. Here, this is not real basically. My generation basically has not ended. This is not a real story. But here basically I'm just taking as a user story of myself. That my generation ended. Second marriage basically I tried. In that basically I was not getting birth. In that basically the doctor told that basically your basically generation basically has ended. So somebody has ended your generation. That also they have told the date and time also. So that all user story basically is going to dump into the lava data. That is that 100 crore lava data. So how basically this is going to process? So after this basically incidents, the group basically who actually are into this, they basically specially taken the data of Sunilar Nair and they basically created separate island only, and there basically they started doing the process basically. And that also from when basically first marriage basically was planned. In that basically I got AIDS, my Nasbandi was done, and my I was basically done murder basically. Like this each and everything basically. That also basically they heard because they have the real data. So in this, one of the person basically asked the question: It's going to affect to entire Earth planet, or basically it's going to affect to only universe basically? Because Indian nationality is everywhere basically. Even you go to any of the country like uh, Qatar, there also Indian nationality are there. So this is just one user story. In really, basically, my generation basically has not ended. I don't have AIDS also, and there is no murder case basically ongoing with me. I have just taken as a user story, so that basically when the data is going to process at that time basically, when Sunilar Nair basically user story will come, that time basically what are the things going to happen? That's why basically. That's why basically we have taken here as an example basically of one user story. So that basically it should be very clear basically what actually Sunila and I are basically supposed to tell basically from this video basically. And this which so one of the person told that whatever incidents basically happening in this world, whatever things basically you are doing. For example, I am recording this video and I am basically eating anything basically. I am drinking water. I am basically going there. I am going there basically wherever somebody is basically talking to someone. Somebody is talking. Some girls is basically one person basically told that basically you have that girl's number. You basically have that girl number. That person basically told no, basically I don't have that girl number. So each and every is a user story basically. Each and every things basically are user stories basically, which is going to generate basically. And that is in 100 crore birth process basically. In this basically one person basically asked the question, whatever basically user story gets generate from the your body, that is going to connect to that 100 crore child basically. Whatever things basically. For example, I had few pani puris. I basically had few kachori. I basically had few samosas. I basically had few roti and chapatis and some achar and few sabjis and rice. I had few rasgullas. I basically had few phapda jalebi. I basically had some anything basically. Then basically I started basically doing job basically in computer basically. As in that basically I got job in one of the software company also. There basically also I started. So each and every activity basically you are doing that is connected with that 100 crore child going to process with. And that is done by software industry. So whatever thing basically is going to happen in this world, na, for that software industry basically will be. Here basically I have taken example only software industry. But real other industry are all data are also basically getting processed. So one person asked the question basically, do you have the lava data basically of the software industry? That users that basically the banks basically have. Why? Because banks groups are keeping track of each and every software companies and which kind of projects basically they are doing. For example, Tata Group basically TCS. So TCS groups are controlled by set of banks basically that are the SBI banks. And if Tata Group is very high tech group basically, then they are basically controlled by World Banks. That is the World Health Organization. Because Tata groups are basically hiring lakhs of employees and they are doing the projects. In this, basically assume that Microsoft also basically has given some project. In that, basically 10 crore project, Microsoft also given some project to TCS Group also, Accenture Group, Patani Group. One example I had taken Accenture Group basically got the project and they were basically responsible for that car creation. In that car, basically the condition was added basically, birth condition basically. So that we have already solved. So in next video, basically, we are going to see a little bit more about this.